DMI. All right. All right. Welcome back, YouTubers. This is Inland Northwest Native News. I'm your host, Jeff Ferguson, and we are back. Welcome once again. And if it ain't one thing, it's another. I thought I had this down. I am flying solo today, and so I ran the intro all by my lonesome, but I did not get the audio up. So something tells me this might be kind of a rough show. But anyhow, we have some good stories for you today. If this is your first time joining us, we'd like to thank you. We'd like to say lemlemsh. Thank you for joining us. We'd also like to invite you to like and subscribe our channel here. We have been doing, this is episode 32 of our live stream. We've been doing it for a couple months now. We started back before we actually both got sick over COVID, and we have been going pretty strong lately, and we're rapidly approaching 500 subscribers. So yeah, we've picked up several hundred since we started doing this this way, and we've got a lot of really good positive feedback. We've heard from tribal elders all over the place. We're covering news and events for 11 tribes of the Inland Northwest, as far west as the Colville, down south to the Umatilla and Warm Springs, back east to the Blackfeet, all the way on up to the Kalispel and Kootenai, with the Spokane, Colvilles, Yakamas, Nez Perce, pretty much everybody in between. So it's something that it's kind of filling a gap that mainstream media has left wide open for far too long, for decades now. And so we have so many things that happen in this area. It was just something, kind of a passion project that we wanted to do, put together, and hopefully will inspire some of our Native youth to want to continue this and keep it going, because it's we've had a lot of good feedback. I think it's really a good opportunity to highlight some of the wonderful things that Natives are doing in the Inland Northwest. We have artists, we have elders, we have philanthropists, we have entrepreneurs, we have educators, we have all sorts of different people that are working professional Natives, and we have others that are really heavily involved in language preservation and culture all throughout the Inland Northwest, all to revitalize and save our culture, our language, our way of life. And we have people working hard to bring back the salmon, all sorts of things. And we try to highlight those stories because we think they're important to you. We're doing this on a local level, but we also bring you regional news and national news as it affects you as well. So that being said, I'm going to move right along. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the comment section below, or you can chime in. We have people that connect with us on the live feed here. Let's see here, like Irv Schlufer, our elder correspondent from the Coeur d'Alene tribe. He says last week numbers have ranged between 40,000 and 78,000, with Thursday ending in 62,000 as far as our COVID updates go. You know, it's really affected us here in Indian country, but we've got a lot of positive things that have ended up, you know, as a byproduct of COVID. You know, a lot of the tribes ended up with funding for internet sources, for IHS. Biden just passed a massive bill. I think it was $31.2 billion that's going to be put into Indian country to help with IHS programs and tribal governments and all sorts of things as a byproduct. You know, it's taken so long to get this kind of funding, and it took something this drastic to get it going through the White House, and now we have some positive movement. So anyhow, let's see. Our first story here we are going to check out has to do with that exact. Here we go. So we have the Democrats. Democrats just approved the budget. They just approved the biggest investment in Native programs in U.S. history. The Senate passed COVID-19 relief bills, including more than $31.2 billion for tribal governments and Native American communities. When Senate Democrats narrowly passed $1.9 trillion coronavirus relief package on Saturday, they also passed the U.S. government's largest ever investment in Native American programs. The bill, which expected to pass the House and be signed into law by President Joe Biden as soon as this week, includes more than $31.2 billion for tribal governments and Native communities. The money will go to help directly to helping Indians, American Indians, Alaskan Natives, and Native Hawaiians focus on economic recovery in their communities devastated by the COVID-19 pandemic. This historic funding is a down payment on federal programs. It's a down payment on federal government's trust responsibility to Native communities. Senator Brian Schatz, Democrat of Hawaii, chairman of the Senate Indian Affairs Committee, said in a statement. This article came out of the Huffington Post. So we'll leave the this just a first couple paragraphs of that article. It goes on, is much more in depth. We'll leave the link to that in the comments section below. So when we talk about the administrative passing $31.2 billion, to give you an idea how much funding this is, it's a lot. You know, I think it's about 9 or 10 times the size of the Colville settlement. So, you know, Colville passed a while back, and that was about $3 billion. This is $31 billion. That's a lot more. So I'm sure we're going to start seeing the trickle-down effects with all sorts of different programs, all sorts of economic development. We're going to see improvements in education and healthcare and all sorts of different things in Indian country. So we're really looking forward to that. We're definitely going to keep an eye on that. So our next story, this one is a little bit different. This one, Indigenous woman at county jail nearly dies in custody, by DARREN Thomas. This is out of Rapid City, South Dakota. A member of the Oglala Sioux tribe nearly died while in custody at the Pennington County Jail due to medical negligence by medical staff in Rapid City, South Dakota. Carly Plenty Arrows was arrested and taken into custody on Wednesday, February 24th for a failure to appear driving under the influence. A DUI warrant in Pennington County. Plenty Arrows noticed on Friday, February 26th, that she began feeling severely ill and reported her symptoms to the jail medical staff. When I reported my symptoms to the medical staff, I expressed that something was wrong with me, Plenty Arrows told Native News Online. I know my body, but all they did was take my temperature, treated me for a bladder infection with antibiotics, and sent me back to my cell. Her temperature on Friday, February 26, registered at 102 degrees and kept rising throughout the weekend, leading her to faint and fall in her cell on Monday, March 1st. On Monday, my eyes were blurry, and I know I fell down in my cell, said Plenty Arrows. I don't know how long I was there, but when I was able to get up, I called the jail staff and asked them to take my temperature. On Monday morning, her temperature rose to 107 degrees. High-grade fevers above 104 can cause brain damage and lead to death. She was transported to the Monument Health Rapid City Hospital, where she was told that if she hadn't been transported sooner, she could have died due to septic shock. Now that's crazy. 107-degree temperature, 104-degree temperature, 102-degree temperature. When somebody's that sick, to have somebody become a victim of the failure of what's going on within that facility is really, it can be devastating, clearly. This was out of Rapid City, out of the Native News Online. Again, I'm going to leave the link in the description below. But, you know, when we start talking, we relate that to things that have happened to our inmates here in the Spokane area. We've had an influx of COVID cases out at Airway Heights, the minimum security prison out in Airway Heights, and also in the Spokane County Jail. And when we start looking at those that kind of health care is very limited. And, you know, I think there's room for improvement. And especially when we look at somebody, you know, like this gal here, that was neglected. You know, when your temperature's that high, clearly when you're 102, you should have somebody checking on this person at least periodically, not just with your normal rounds, but having somebody come by. So that was kind of a sad story. I do want to pick it up a little bit. This is a little bit changing it up a little bit. The Heard Museum 63rd Annual Indian Fair and Market hosts first ever hybrid fair. In Phoenix, Arizona, the world-renowned Heard Museum Guild hosted its 63rd Annual Indian Fair and Market over the weekend, featuring Native American art from more than 325 artists with more than 80 tribal affiliations from Alaska to Maine. Due to the coronavirus pandemic, this year's event was dubbed as a hybrid fair with the majority of activities such as the art market, performances, and artist interviews held virtually, and some artists showcasing their work live in the museum shop. In non-pandemic times, the Heard Museum Guild Indian Fair and Market draws nearly 15,000. That's a lot. Visitors featuring more than 600 Indian country's most outstanding artists and successful American Indian artists, according to the Heard Museum. However, due to the pandemic, event staff says attendance was well under 1,000. Wow, that's a big drop. Juanita Growing Thunder Fogarty, she had a painting called Wakitantonka. Gosh, I gotta brush up on my Lakota. Wakitantonka. This piece which means strong-willed pandemic survivor, was awarded Best of Show in 2021. It was a juried competition held at the museum at the Indian Fair and Market. Growing Thunder Fogarty is a Assiniboine Sioux from Fort Peck, Montana, and has won numerous awards at Santa Fe Indian Market, and has previously won a first-place award at last year's Indian Fair and Market at the Heard Museum. The Heard Museum purchased Wakitantonka for $30,000 and will be displayed in the museum in the future. So it goes on to state, Juanita Growing Thunder Fogarty's work is unmatchable, said. Now this is a tough one. Wankatong, Dakota, artist Cole Red Thunder Jacobson to Native News Online. Cole Red Thunder Jacobson had been attending the Heard Indian Fair and Market for the last 3 years and expressed hopes for this year's mainly virtual event. I was excited that the Heard Museum was able to host the event virtually this year for the safety of everyone, Jacobson said. My hopes this year are to continue to share my work and to add to challenge myself to make creations to submit for other juried shows, Jacobson said. It's amazing just to have my work in the same room as all the greats. So that's really a kind of a cool deal that they kept going. I know a lot of things this year were forced to go online. The Heard Museum keeping up their Indian Fair Market, and if you've never been to the Heard Museum, I highly recommend it. They have one of the, if not the largest collection of kachinas in there. I think when I was there, they said like 2,200, and that was a while ago, so it might even be bigger by now. But it's really something to check out. It's really, when you're in a room filled with that many kachinas, is very powerful. You can really feel the sumesh. You can feel the power, the healing. You can feel the medicine in the room with you. So if you haven't got a chance to check it out, when they open it back up, be sure to check it out. If you can, I highly encourage you to support the Heard Museum in all their efforts. I know here in Spokane, we had the One Heart Native American Arts and Film Festival that was all online this year, and we had a good response from that. So it's pretty cool to see this kind of thing still happening. You know, still people making things happen in Indian country amongst the pandemic. This next story is actually an opinion piece that was written by a guy that is been a tribal leader in gaming for quite some time now. His name is Ernie Stevens Jr. This piece reads and is entitled American Rescue Plan, President Biden is Standing by His Word. And Ernie Stevens Jr., for those of you that don't know him, he is the president of the National Indian Gaming Association, which is a huge organization now. It was founded, about 30 years ago to help Native Americans, help with the fight for sovereignty and help them to help grow gaming. And so this article that he talks about is pretty extensive, and I'm just going to read a small portion of it. Actually, I'm only going to read about a quarter of it, but it really talks a lot about how this is going to help Indian country. President Biden's campaign on a promise to focus first on defeating COVID-19 with the American Rescue Plan. The president delivers on the promise in historic proportions. Now, this one just came out, and this came out in NIGA, the National Indian Gaming Association. Again, we'll leave the link in the comment section below. If you've never attended a NIGA event, they're pretty big. They've been holding them down in San Diego for the last few years, and I actually had the opportunity to go down and meet Ernie Stevens Jr. He was such an eloquent man. He stopped and he waited. After every time he talked, he waited for every person in that room that wanted to come and talk or get a picture with him or whatever, just to say hi. He always stayed, and I thought that was really neat. I got the opportunity to do some interviews down there, and he actually offered me his green room, which was, and then catered it. It was really neat. So everybody that came in to do the interviews that I had, they hosted it, and it was all catered. And Ernie Stevens Jr., shout out to you, man. You rock. I'm glad you're in the position that you're in, and I'm glad that you're able to make statements like this. So I'm going to go on. On March 10th, 2021, 1 year after the United States declared COVID-19 pandemic a national emergency, the U.S. House of Representatives is prepared to send the American Rescue Plan to President Biden's desk, delivering on his #1 promise to the American people, getting the virus under control by healing our citizens and our economies. The coronavirus has tested the resolve of the entire nation. America has suffered tragic losses. The COVID-19 pandemic created a health and economic crisis in the United States, taking more than 525,000 American lives, infecting nearly 30 million Americans, more than 10 million remaining unemployed. Native America has been particularly hard hit. The CDC reports that on a per capita basis, Native Americans have the highest COVID infection hospitalization and death rates of any community in the nation. Tribal economies, many of which rely on government revenue generated in the hospitality industry like gaming and hotels, restaurants, and tourism, suffered much of the brunt of shutdowns to prevent the spread of the virus. It is estimated that tribal government-owned enterprises sustained 35% revenue losses in 2020 alone. These government revenues have forced many tribes to furlough government employees and cut essential education, health, housing, and safety services to reservation residents. So it's affected all parts of Indian country. And when they're talking about government, they're talking about tribal governments. He's talking about how it's affected individual tribal governments and how the revenue that was created through gaming and hospitality and these other revenue-generating economic plans this last year are down 35%. That's pretty substantial. So I'm sure we're going to see kind of the long-term effects of that trickle out over the next maybe even decade or so. But, you know, to counter that, Biden put in the $31.2 billion. Even though that money's coming in, that doesn't mean that everything that was forced to shut down or everything that the programs that were forced to fold or be postponed are going to come back full force. They may or may not. You know, unfortunately, when that happens, it forces people that are in those positions that had those full-time jobs, whether it was at the clinic or in the admin building or whatever. Unfortunately, if they weren't able to go on unemployment and stay on it, if they weren't able to find gainful employment in what they were in the field that they were working in, unfortunately, some of those people, I'm sure, were forced to go out and find other jobs in other fields, and that is where you end up having people with all of this experience having to go and leave their positions and then refill those positions. And it's just a trickle-down effect. We're going to keep an eye on that. This was a great article. I encourage you to read it. It came out at NIGA, the National Indian Gaming Association, released it to Indian Country Today. Again, the comment section is going to be in the link below. So, moving right along. The link will be in the comment section below. All right, so moving right along, we have this story, which is, I know a lot of people have been wondering about. This comes out of Oil City News. So we scoured the internet to find this stuff because it's not always grouped in one spot. We got this one out of Oil City News, and this is good news. 2021 Indian Relays returning to Casper in September. This one by Greg Hurst came out on March 5th. Casper, Wyoming. The Championship of Champions Indian Relay races will return to Casper September 24th to the 26th. The Wind River Hotel and Casino and Northern Arapaho Tribe announced. The collaboration with Horse Nation Indian Relay Council brings the highly competitive traditional Native American sport back to the Central Wyoming Fairgrounds. Riders do three laps around half-mile track, switching horses each lap and riding bareback. The horsemanship skills, coordination, speed, and sportsmanship of the warriors are tested as 12 to 16 horses can be on the track at any given time. Opening ceremonies will include Native American dancers, drummers, color guard, and spiritual leaders from Northern Arapaho tribe. The 3-day event will also include women's relays, chief race, warrior race, maiden race, and back in for 2021, the youth relay. Events start at noon each day. Tickets and more information are available on the Horse Nations Indian Relay Council website. Again, I'll leave the link, this one, to Oil City News. Shout out to Oil City News for covering this. We really appreciate all the information that we get posted out there. We'll keep looking for it. If you have any questions or comments, if you have any story suggestions or any interviews, be sure to leave them in the comment section below. You can email us. You can also catch us on Facebook. Quick shout out to David in Bangladesh. We appreciate you chiming in, buddy. Happy to see you, Jeff. But Miss Margo, yeah, I miss Margo too. Margo chimed in. Good morning, sweetheart. You are doing great. So thank you for watching, guys. We really appreciate it. Yeah, David. One of these days, I'm gonna have to do an interview with you to see how things are going in Bangladesh. I know COVID there has been handled very differently than it's been here. Hopefully on Monday when we come back, we'll have Margo back in the house with us. But yeah, back to our story here. Indian relays. Indian relay races are so much fun. If you haven't gone, it is exciting. It's like watching the Kentucky Derby with natives that aren't on saddles. They're riding bareback. They hop off the horse, hop to the next horse, and take off. And sometimes those horses take off before they're on. So you see the guys running, trying to jump back on the horse. Sometimes they got to let them go. This particular one, like some of the ones I've been to, also have the women's races. And boy, those women, they come and they bring it hard, man. You watch those. Some of those women are riding those horses, and they just they're in it. They're all in, and it's a fierce race, just like the men's are. And it's, you know, no holds barred. The youth races are something else. The Chiefs race, you got to watch them all. I encourage you to go early so you can see all your friends and family. Stay late if you get a chance. Hopefully we'll hear some announcements about the Walla Walla relays. We'll hear some announcements about Muckleshoot and when those will be coming up. And until then, I think that's about all we have this year. Yeah, we really appreciate you tuning in. We encourage you to like and subscribe. If you want to be updated, be sure to click the little bell that pops up, and that'll notify you of our upcoming live streams and any other content. We do have some content that we haven't got a chance to edit that'll be coming up too. Some really good interviews from various events around the Inland Northwest. But I think I'm going to have a kind of a short little show today without my sidekick. It kind of feels empty here, all of this extra space. Anyhow, we encourage you also to share our program with your friends and family that are living abroad, whether it's out of the country, whether it's around the country. If they're living away from home, this is kind of a good way that they can kind of keep up on some of the things that are going on around here. So again, we're almost to 500 subscribers. Woohoo! We appreciate you all, love you all. Thank you so much. Lem lemsh, she uhoy. We'll see you on Monday.